Welcome to the podcast where together, every Monday, we explore hospitality in its very broadest sense. From culture and cooking, cocktails and coffee, nutrition and farming, politics and animal welfare, organic and sustainability, family and business, entrepreneurship, and much, much more. Come and learn with me, Mark Cribb, about where our food and our drink comes from, and the businesses and, more importantly, the human beings that thrive on where we decide to spend our time and our money. Sign up to our weekly newsletter at humansofhospitality.co.uk and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. People often say in an off-the-cuff way that something they organised was like a military operation. Well, this week's guest, Harry Lomas, really does know what it's like to run a kitchen as a huge, well-oiled military machine. Harry's strategic skills have been honed by the 34 years he spent with the British Army. His amazing career included a stint with the Royal Household, the position of Master Chef with the Parachute Regiment in Cyprus, and, to round off, being responsible for feeding troops around the world, including Afghanistan. There he was involved in rebuilding the kitchen at Camp Bastion, which had to serve 25,000 troops at each sitting 3 times a day. The statistics become even more eye-watering with Harry's next role, overseeing the catering for the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games in London. As you'll hear, the prospect of serving 147,000 people a day never seemed to daunt Harry. That's probably why he's the perfect fit for the title he now holds, Head of Culinary at Wembley Stadium. At which point I'll hand over to the great strategist himself. Only Harry can explain the complexities of cooking different meals for thousands of football fans and making sure they're back in their seats before kick-off. Harry Lomas, thank you so much for sparing the time to be on the podcast. Hugely appreciated. For people listening, can you just explain where on planet Earth are we, please, Harry? Because it's quite a special place.
It is. We're at the National Stadium. This is Wembley Stadium in London, and it's the home of the FA.
Yeah, amazing. I'm staggered. I've been obviously, researching you before I came, and the scale and the variety of some of the stuff you've done over your career literally made my eyes water when I was reading about, the sort of a number of people that you can serve in a day. So very much looking forward to going on a bit of a journey around your career and your life in kitchens and hospitality. But we'll start with Wembley, if you don't mind. Can you just give a sense of the scale of the operation here? How many restaurants are here? Who are they aimed at? How does it work?
Yeah, it's an outstanding venue and pretty much the peak of my career to be working in Wembley. We've got about 100 kitchens throughout the whole of the stadium, half a dozen restaurants, and each of the restaurants are quite unique to the different members, the varying members that we have. Starting off at the top end, we've got the 120, which offers outstanding fine dining, 5-course meal, 5-choice meal, a la carte in about a 3-hour window, and that caters for about 450. That's quite unique in trying to get your meal in time before they kick the football off. On time, otherwise they ain't going to hold the kick-off for me, so no. I've got to get the food out. So that's quite high end, lots of work going to there, and we are engaged with both the members and the FA in choosing the menus, what go in there, so a lot of work goes into that. The next one down, again, hospitality plated, is 3-choice, 3-course menu, and that's our Bobby Moore restaurant, and that's about 900 to 1,000 people we get in there. And again, the same 3-hour window to get the 1,000 people through. Tables of 2 up to tables of 10 coming through there. Lots of corporate hospitality and lots of members in there. But a new restaurant that's opened up is our new atrium, which is called our number 9.
Were you just trying to make life more difficult? Did you think that all the other restaurants you had weren't enough and you just needed one more? Or what was the motivation for adding number 9?
Yeah, well, that's really interesting. I've been here about 2 years and I thought it was easy just feeding football fans. And then I found out there's different sorts of football fans. And, food is always on the move. People are always looking for something different. They're always looking for innovation. You're only as good as your last meal, and everybody's always looking for something different. And the uniqueness of the number 9, which was just a buffet restaurant, is still a buffet restaurant, but it's a high-end buffet restaurant. And that's been fully decked out, fully refurbished, great furnishings in there, and therefore we've got the food to match it. And we've gone down a bit of a theme of London markets. So Billingsgate for the fish and the tapas area. We've got the Smithfield for the meat, the roast. We've got Brick Lane for the curries and the Oriental. So the idea is on each match, we try and just switch the food round. Try and put a nod to whoever we're playing against. So whatever the opposing team is that's coming in, we have a little bit of food, pass-around food, which gives a bit of a nod to whoever the opposing team. So if, I don't know, Germany coming in, we'd have some little bits going around, German bites going around, just so they're included in the overall food and the experience. Look, when people come to Wembley Stadium, they're coming to see what's on in the football field. They're not coming to see me and the food. What my job is and what I like it to be is I want to be part of it, and I want to make the food part of their journey. So it's great they come in here, they spent all that money on a ticket and what have you, but I'm in the middle before they get there. And my job is to just make them feel that the whole experience comes together. I have the opportunity to go and chat to them when they're dining, find out what they like, what they don't like. Look, if I got it right every time, I wouldn't be here. They'd have somebody else here. But it's good to have the challenges that it brings with all the preferences and allergens and various things. It gives me the opportunity to go and table touch, find out what makes people tick, find out what they want to have. And hence that led us to a little bit of this new number 9 restaurant where people do like to graze. Not everybody's into this formal dining, sitting down, plate, being served. There is absolutely a requirement for that, without a shadow of a doubt, and that's always going to be a couple of thousand for us on a football match. But more and more is of the grazing buffet. From the number 9, there's another restaurant opened up, which is the Centre Circle. And as it is, it's on the other side of the stadium, right on the halfway line. So the seating for the members are right on the halfway line. They can see the royal box. They can see the footballers coming out the tunnel. All whatever happens on the football pitch, they get all excited about it. But the offering is a street food. Very simply, it's opened a couple of hours before they start. Members in there, it's about 500 members in there, and it gives them the opportunity to have some of the street food, whether it's a pulled pork bap, whether it's a kebab, whether it's fish and chips, whether it's curry and rice, spaghetti bolognese, what do we have? The Yorkshire pudding wraps, those sort of things. They're all little bits, and they come round 2 or 3 times, and drinks part and parcel of the package.
Luckily, I've had lunch, or I'd be starving, Harry. But
yeah.
All of these are these just match days that these are open? All of these restaurants.
So these are match days only.
Yeah.
Whilst downtime from match days, it's a venue for hire Wembley. So we have hospitality throughout some of the areas when there's no match on.
Yeah. So if you have a big kind of gig or something going on here, are all of the restaurants, they're all open on match day? Are they all open any other time, or would that be unlikely, basically?
That would be very, very unlikely.
If the Spice Girls come and fill it up, you don't necessarily open every single...
No, so when we say a bowl event, so that could be, so that's the football.
Yeah.
I thought I knew football. Then there's EFL, there's the FA, then there's the RFL, which is rugby. Then there's the NFL, which is American football. Everybody's got get a turn in here. And of course, when you think it's all finished, then they bring in the Spicy Girls and all the rest of them. They all come in, and then there's other Eagles and Bieber and everybody else. They're all coming. So when they're on, when there is a bowl event on, everything's open.
Right. Okay. Wow. And actual football games, is it 9 a year? Is that right? Is that? Or?
Wow. Now, that's a very interesting statement, because when they asked me to come and do this job, I think they said to me, we only have about 9 matches a year.
Yeah.
What they meant to tell me is there's 9 main matches.
Right.
But I think we do about 25.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's and last year I think we did 125. It seemed to be open every other day, you know what I mean? But as long as the grass is growing out there, they're playing football.
Was that the year that Tottenham were borrowing it? Or?
That was the year. So we had Tottenham Hotspurs were here for the first part of the year, and then everything else came in the second half of the year, yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so real range then from sort of top end fine dining down to casual, and this is members only basically. You can't just rock up and come in and eat Harry's lunch.
There is an opportunity for some on the day when you come in. So we do have some of the restaurants where we allow people in and they can pay on the day, which is a similar offering. But predominantly it's members only. Of course, we've got the new Three Lions pub and the Lioness pub. I think they're the biggest pubs in Europe. So they tell me, and that offers, you know, I mean, burgers, fish and chips, pizzas, and what have you, pub grub to come in there. So that's a walk-in offer that you can come into as well. And of course, that's all on the corporate membership side. But, you know, I mean, 3/4 of the stadium are general public, general admission.
Are you responsible for food for that as well?
Yeah, and the food is, so we've got about 20,000 plated meals going out, round and about. Then the rest of it, it's a 90,000 stadium, and the rest are on levels 1 and level 5. And, you know, I mean, over half the stadium is on level 5, 45,000 are on level 5. And that it offers burgers, hot dogs, fish and chips, all that sort of grab and go.
And none of that's outsourced, that all comes under...
That all comes
Harry
under
Lomas.
here, comes all through here. And again, part of my remit and why I like the job is I want to make an impact on somebody's journey through Wembley, whether it is the fish and chips, whether it's the bagel, or whether it's the fine dining in the 120. You know, I mean, somewhere along the line, we're involved in that food, and we want to make sure it's the best we can do.
I'm exhausted just listening,
So
Harry, to
am
the thought of trying
I'm
to feed
knackered. It's
that
Friday
many
afternoon,
people
of course I'm knackered.
in 3 hours. I was saying before we started that, you know, I've got a restaurant where we try and serve 200 people on a Saturday night and maybe 100 people in the bar, and my team think it's mental. So I'm going to play this back to them and say, there you go, imagine having 90,000 people to serve.
Well, I think an important part, I'd like to say, you know, I mean, I don't do this on my own, and I'm only as good as my team. And I've got an outstanding team. I've got 4 head chefs, a good admin support, good back of house support, and that really is the nucleus of how it all comes together. On the day, I've got up to 250 chefs and kitchen assistants round the whole of the stadium. So obviously, about 4 days out, I start to prep. An extra 10 guys in, extra 40 guys in the next day, an extra 50 guys in on the next day. And on the game day, we got about 250 in and around.
So I was chatting to my brother a couple of days ago, who's also working in catering, and he's been trying to recruit one chef for about the last 2 months, of which I think about 80% of the people who say they're going to come in for a trial shift don't rock up. And he was kind of like, how do you find 250 people to turn up for? Because these aren't, presumably, they don't all work directly for you. Is this through agencies? Or
No, there's a combination of variable staff that work for us, for our team, Delaware North, throughout London and up and down the country. And then over half come from agencies. But we have a very good liaison with our agencies. And we're known as a sort of a no-nonsense approach. You know, I mean, if you come in here, they know we're here. They know what is required. And I think they enjoy it when they come. And the idea, if you make work fun, you know, I mean, I think they'll come. They don't come to watch the football match, but they come part of the experience. And it's a real buzz when there's a match on here. You know, I mean, everybody's behind it. We've got to make it happen. And, you know, I mean, at the end of a game, 50% of the stadium are not going to be happy because somebody's won or lost or whatever the case may be. So I like to think that we've helped them through their journey with the food. Yeah. If they're going home talking about the food and it's good about the food, I'm delighted.
Makes sense. So 250 people on a match day. You mentioned just now about the fact you can, kind of orientate the food a little bit around who's playing. Any particular countries that have come where you've gone, oh no, I'm thinking of the Scandinavians who eat that funny little fish, isn't it? The kind of, the eels. Do you have certain countries where you go, yes, I love their food, and other countries where you go, oh my goodness?
Well, interesting. I think that, Britain, what a place, we're so eclectic in our food anyway. There's no way you can go, I think, around the world where you can have as many flavours as you can in London. You can so I don't really have to go very far. I just put a bit of a twist to it. And sometimes we were looking for some Croatian dishes. And again, you've got to do, the help of Google and the internet and what have you. And believe it or not, I was talking around the kitchen, there's 2 Croatian chefs we've got there working. So they came up with a bit of a stew and a dish that we use, a hot pot. And, it's amazing. It's right underneath your nose. You don't realise of the skill set you've got. If you've got 250 chefs that come in to work here, the chances are you've covered nearly every part of the food varieties there is. They've all eaten something somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's true. London is a great city for that. And then your role is to head up all of this. You're certainly dressed as a chef. I can't imagine how you can do that, I suppose, and not end up, being sat behind a desk. What does your role actually entail? Are you in the kitchens? How many kitchens do you say you had?
Yeah, about a dozen kitchens, which are live kitchens. There's about 100. Each one of the boxes, there's 160 boxes, all got a kitchen. There's all the back kitchens, prep kitchens. We've got about a dozen live kitchens. Then we've got all the kitchens in the kiosks. So,
So is your role clearly is not sat behind a laptop trying to make all this happen? What are you actually, realistically, is it in service? Is it menu prep? Is it recruitment? Is it all of the above?
Yeah, it's all of the above. I refer to myself that I'm just the cook at Wembley.
Yeah.
And that comes off the line from the Steven Seagal in that film. He's just the cook on the ship.
That's right.
And that's a bit where I am.
Yeah.
I've got fingers in all pies and what have you, and we make it go.
You still get to cook?
I get involved. I get told off on many occasions because that's why I've got all the head chefs. That's why I've got people to do it. So I'm a bit like the conductor in the orchestra. I just try and bring things together. I do the firefighting. I do the liaising. I just make sure the checks and balances are done. And I'm very much about bringing on the next generation of chefs. So I'm out there just watching what they're doing. My head chefs, I'm very keen to bring them on. If I'm doing it all the time, then they're not learning. So I'd rather them are doing it, so they're doing the ordering. Of course, there's checks and balances. I'm sat right next to them. I see what's coming in. And they're learning because all the head chefs will all be execs of stadiums one day, and they need to be able to feel it. So I swap the sort of main responsibilities around. I've got one looking after the restaurants, one looking after the concessions, another looking after the ancillaries and all the football team itself, and the back of house. And each match they switch around and they try and learn a little bit of something else. On the outside, trying to bring the stores in and all the food in, and making sure the equipment's right in the right place and working with my back of house. I tend to do a bit more of that and make sure they've got everything they require to be able to deliver the job. And then on the day, once we've got everything set up, I get round and visit Table Touch as much as I can. I love chatting to the guests. I try and get round all the restaurants, and if we've got a complaint somewhere, and we'll have a complaint somewhere, I go and find out, what's gone wrong? How can I make your life better? My job's here to make your life and make your experience as best we can. And if we haven't done it, what do we do wrong? And can I do something to make it right? And I find that if you get straight onto it, I'm not shy, I'm quite happy. If you get straight onto it and get it sorted out, the guests and the members are really good. They really understand. And actually, I get on with them very well to the extent one or two of our dishes, in fact, 3 or 4 of our dishes have come from members of saying, oh, do you think we could have that? And I'd like to see this. We have an event called Changing Room Dinners where they get, I think, 40 members over 4 nights to come into the changing rooms, and we set it up like a restaurant. It's one of the perks of being the members. They come in there and we do a menu of something that we're going to serve on the next game. So they've got first taster at it and see what's going on. I suppose I give it to them to try it out. If I don't get any complaints, I know I've got away with it. If they turn their nose up, I think I'll have to sort of change that round a little bit. So they're my guinea pigs. But it gives them an opportunity to have an insight into what's going on. I get the chance to talk to them, find out what they're doing, what they like, which is the best restaurant, why is that working and not this isn't working. The only conversation we don't discuss is football.
Right.
Because they're going to get 40 minutes of it, whatever it is out there, quite soon.
Yeah, and you're much more comfortable talking about food than football anyway. So
absolutely.
Well avoided. Can you cook on that level of scale? I think people would presume that to cook at that level, you've got to compromise on the sustainability of food, I suppose, the sourcing of food, how much prep you can do in-house and how much is kind of, bought in prepped. Can you still follow the seasons and buy from kind of, ethical suppliers?
Yes is the answer. I think you've got to go with what you can get. So when you're looking for, I don't know, we're doing lamb racks, and I'm doing 2,500 lamb racks. That's a lot to ask from a butcher round the corner who hand feeds his lambs and is the best ethical lamb you can get, and is bred it on, breast milk, and it's sort of, the top of the tree. Well, he can't provide me that, so I've got to go a little bit wider. So rather than, and even into a county can't do that now. So those numbers now, we're talking about English lamb. And in fact, I think this year is going to be even harder, and we're going to have to talk about British lamb. Now, which I'm delighted with. Anything British, Great British, I'm delighted. That's what I want to deliver in here. Simple food, cooked well, and if it's British, even the better. On the season front, I think the strawberries are an example. I think we have strawberries on every menu, on whether it's winter, spring, summer, or autumn, because we can get them, and people see that as an opulent part of their meal if they can have strawberries and cream, or there'll be strawberries as a garnish, or strawberries in the drink, or somewhere along the line. So we can get strawberries all year round. I do try and put maybe more sort of comfort food, warm food towards the end of the year when it's a bit colder, and a more lighter spring food. Like to have asparagus, an example. I like to use asparagus when it's in the top of the tree and it's affordable. So yes, when we can and we can get it, then we'll use it. And we've got all my suppliers are outstanding. They do understand the depth and the detail that I need to go into, and I have a conversation before every game with each of my suppliers saying, this is what I'd like, how I want it. We do go out to suppliers who will prepare some of my terrines and pâtés and things like that, because the amount I need, and as you know yourself, with the HACCP and with the health and safety of the whole lot, it just ties you into a knot of you trying to produce that and keep all the paperwork in a straight line. So by going out to those suppliers, the third-party suppliers coming in, there's somebody we work with, we swap recipes, they're a little bit of theirs, a little bit of mine, and we've come to a compromise. Can you do me these? Can you do me, 2,000 ramekin, pâté, all the same size, all the same. So, yeah, I think working with the suppliers, making sure it's as ethical as it can be. I'm the first to jump up and down if it doesn't look right and doesn't smell like. I don't want Chernobyl chickens. I want British chicken, and I know the difference, and the suppliers know I know. So, and fruit and veg, I feel for the fruit and veg suppliers, because the weather has not been kind to us at all in the fruit and vegetable department. So we sometimes have to go further afield. Some of the peppers and things like that we're having to get from Spain and Italy. They're just not happening over this neck of the woods. So yeah, I think there's a passion and a drive to use local, use traceable food and an ethical food. I think that's what I like to do, and also it helps the story. That when I'm talking to our guests and our members when they're here, I want to talk about where that lamb's come from. It's nice salt marsh lamb as the salt air comes off the sea onto the grass and they're eating it. It just makes that lamb the difference in that lamb, and it's easy to cook. It's better to present, and it's just so succulent when they're eating it, and it's nice to know that story of how it all comes together.
Yeah, it's nice to know that can be done at scale. I was with, do you know Hawksmoor restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely, I do, yeah.
Okay, so I was with Will Beckett earlier today, funny enough, from Hawksmoor, and he was saying that, even at their level, the scale that they've got to, he'd phone his local butcher because he tries to buy as much as possible, direct from the farms, but even at his level, when he phones up and he's like, it's Will from Hawksmoor, and they're like, no, we can't do it, we're not interested. And I can imagine if you say it's Harry from Wembley Stadium, and I've got, I need a couple of bits for Saturday, that they must
we will get told lots of
please
people
go away, Harry.
We can supply you your lamb. Okay, fine. So I need 2,000 lamb racks. Well, is it all right if it's frozen? And can I start giving you 6 months out?
Yeah.
No, that's not what the game's about. So all the suppliers out there, first of all, is can the suppliers. So straight away you start to narrow it down to what you can do. Yeah. But I like a story behind food.
Well, we'll come back to that again a little bit, because I'm interested from the military perspective in a similar way, because getting food to Wembley Stadium must be a challenge, but how you get food to a tent in Afghanistan is another story. But we'll give that some context in a minute. So your career, to be able to achieve the numbers that you talk about, and just that level of complexity, I suppose. I've spoken to Alex Aitken, who was a Michelin-starred chef, and one of the things that really appealed to him about the kitchen from being a sort of a young lad was that almost that what he referred to as that military style management in a kitchen, because it needed to have kind of hierarchy, and it everything is so time specific in a kitchen. And I think there's often a very different management style front of house than there is in the kitchen because of those timings. Your career did actually start that way, so you can genuinely answer that question. Is a kitchen in general, even in civilian world, similar to a military kitchen? And can you just explain a little bit about the start of your career and the military background? There's 2 questions there.
Yes. Okay, I think that in a kitchen, we have the team of chefs in there, and we call them a brigade of chefs. And I think that in itself tells you that really it's built on a military organisation. That's why we have the exec chef, the head chef, sous chef, CDPs, demis, commis, assistants. So there's your pecking order in the kitchen itself. And actually, I think it's what's fascinating about our trade. There isn't many other careers where you've got about a dozen steps to get up to, and you can see each one as you're moving up. And then you've got all the different disciplines, whether it's stadia, fine dining, restaurant, school meals, prison service. There's all those different areas of serving food. And the opportunities to get to a stage and then get promoted to move on and see a different part of a kitchen or that area. So from a professional point of view of promotion, the kitchen is the best place, and it's, as I say, built on the likes of the military. So you start off in the military as a young private soldier, and I joined the army in 1974 as a young 16-year-old. How did I get involved in catering? I used to work with my mum at Woolworths. Not a lot of you know what Woolworths is, but it was a shop that sold penny.
It wasn't too long ago that it disappeared, was it? Was it 3-4 years ago now?
Is it? I thought it was.
Maybe it's longer. Anyway, our time flies. Maybe
so I used to go up there and help my mum cook some of the staff meals, and I got myself a little job in a pub where I used to do all the washing up. And one day the chef said to me, "I need some carrots peeling," and so I thought, well, it's better than washing up. I'll peel these carrots. And I peel these carrots, and he was so complimentary how I peel these carrots. He asked me to chop them as well. I didn't chop them as well as he wanted them, and I still had all my digits on the end of my arm, so I felt that I'd done very well. And he said to me, "You would make a very good chef." I thought, really?
Wow, just from your carrots?
Just from my carrots.
Amazing.
It was an opportunity that I come from the back streets of Burnley, Lancashire lad. I knew the policeman on a first name terms, and I thought that I didn't want them to know any more about me. So an opportunity came up to join the services. I did go from Burnley up to Preston with my three-piece suit on and tie. My mum had dressed me up to go and join the Royal Navy. And when I got there at 12 o'clock, I knocked on the door and looked in the window, and there was nobody in there. And so as I'm hanging about outside, a sergeant from the guards comes in. He said, "What are you after, young man?" I said, "Oh, I've come to join the Navy." He said, "Oh, they're not in at the moment." It was a tri-service where the Army, Navy and Air Force use the same office. So he said, "They're not in. If you want, come and sit down and wait for them." And I'm in there, of course, a big airy arse bloody guardsman said, "Well, what you wanting to do in the Navy?" I said, "Oh, I want to be a cook." "Ah, the best cook is in the Army. You don't want to mess around with the Navy." So an hour later, I'd signed up in the Army and got back home. My mother said to me, "Well, you went out this morning to join the Navy and you've now joined the Army." I said, "Well, they were closed." So, but the Navy is, all the services is all brilliant at doing what they do, and all do it slightly different. So I joined Aldershot, 1974, as a young apprentice, and I did a 3-year apprenticeship to get my sitting gills, and then soon got posted out to. I went to catering straight away, and then was posted out to Cyprus for 2 years to go and work at the end of the EOCA, the Cyprus troubles that were out there. I was went right at the very end when they were still feeding some of the refugees. So here I am as a young sort of just 18. I think I might have just been 17, 3/4, feeding refugees. And, that has scarred my life. The refugees are as far as the eye can see. And you're feeding them some soup and some bread, because that's what the allocation was. And it is absolutely heart-shattering for these people to come up with their hands cupped, asking, "Can you have a little bit more bread?" And they used to whittle bits of stone and wood and bring you up, "Can I give you this just to have some more bread?" And of course, you couldn't give anybody any more than you were told to give. And I had guys either side of me, the Welsh Guards were with me at the time, and to make sure that nobody, turned the tables over and whatever. But what a sad state of affairs. And of course, as I've moved through my army career, I've seen lots of refugees and lots of people perhaps less fortunate than ourselves. And it is so terrible that people, when you've got nothing, and I mean nothing, it's very terrible, and you are the man or the person who's delivering what bit they can have. These aid agencies, it must be a nightmare for them to do that full time. But that took me for 6 months, and then I pretty much leapt through my career in different kitchens with the Welsh Guards, the signals, the hospitals, the mechanics, the air corps, all different infantry. Eventually get into the sergeant's mess, becoming master chef. So this is when you're in charge of your own team of chefs. And always the chefs are soldiers first and chefs second. So you've got to be able to shoot your rifle and run and do whatever you need to do. But the teams that I've had and I've worked with have been brilliant all through my career.
What was the time frame, from starting to being in the sergeant's mess?
I would say about 8 years, 10 years.
Okay.
I on my journey to the sergeant's mess and to being a warrant officer, I came out of catering for about 3 years to go and train the next generation of recruits. So I became a sergeant major. So all screaming, all shouting.
These are recruits, not chef recruits?
These are chef recruits. So, okay. And I'm teaching their military aspect of their career. So the idea they've got to learn how to be a soldier, and then they'd go up into the kitchen and somebody else would be teaching them how to be a chef. Lots of our chef instructors are all from the civilian world anyway. So teaching what we've learned in the military chefing is from the civilian world. Right. So I'm the guy that sort of teaches them how to march and make sure the bed and their lockers are all clean and puts them into jail and shouts and screams. They were very good. I had about 200 recruits I used to have in my company. And they nicknamed me HTB, Harry the Bastard. That went down very well because I was there to make sure. I was local parental care of these youngsters. You know what I mean? There's a 16 to 17-year-old and they come from all over the world. Yeah. And my job is to make sure to bring them together, teamwork, and get them gelled together, ready to be posted out to Cyprus, Hong Kong, Ireland, wherever they were going to go to.
Did they tend to be mainly interested in cooking? Was the kind of military side of it a surprise? That wasn't not necessarily a surprise, but not necessarily the bit they wanted to do. Did they mainly want to cook rather than, I don't know, I'm imagining getting shouted at 4 a.m, told to jump out your bunk and go and run around a forest or something when all you wanted to do was make an Eggs Benedict?
Yeah. Absolutely. They all knew when they came that military was part and parcel of it, soldier chef. And actually, the reason they enjoy it is they don't get bored in the kitchen all the time. And there was an element, one is keeping the fitness up, and it's about being a proper, upright, standing, good human being and looking after yourself. And cooking was your trade. So all the good bits about being in the military, on time, clean, cleanliness, is all part and parcel of that. And of course, that made them fit for being a cook. We'd already got them trained discipline-wise. And as you mentioned earlier on, discipline in the kitchen is what we need. So we're actually in the background slowly making them right, discipline and teaching them and ready for when they're going to be a chef. And then they go up to the kitchens and then get their sitting gills. They'd be, 2-year apprenticeship they do and then move on with their sitting gills.
Okay, and that's still the same, so that route into the army?
That's still similar, but it's national vocational qualifications and those sort of things now. Vocational qualifications, absolutely brilliant for chefs. The only way you can give them qualification, they need to cook. You can't sit behind a desk and learn how to be a chef. You need to have your fingers in the pastry to be able to do it, and that's what's good. That's why NVQs for chefs are good. So after then, eventually they decide to commission me. I was as surprised as them, but them being the army, and my first job after being commissioned was being a personnel officer and a families officer to the Gurkha Regiment.
So sorry for the, excuse my naivety, but being commissioned, what does that mean?
Being commissioned, so that's going from a sergeant major to a captain.
Okay.
And of course, it puts takes the rank off your arm, puts it onto your shoulder. So I become a commissioned officer. Right. So I was commissioned as a captain, and then I went as a personnel officer to a transport regiment, looking after the Gurkha soldiers. So completely different, but of course, what makes you a little bit better. I've just done 23 years cooking. Now I'm now doing management, and I'm now into logistics. And this is why this fits me well for something like Wembley, because this is more about logistics than it is about cooking. Getting the right place, the right stuff in the right place at the right time, the right cost, with the right people. That's what that becomes. Having done that, very good, an interesting point whilst working with the Gurkha soldiers, I was partly responsible to help them bring their families from Nepal. That didn't happen, and at the end of that, very luckily, Her Majesty awarded me the MBE for doing that. So that was a nice sort of surprise, having done that project and done that work. And of course, now all the Gurkhas that are here working with us, I was part of an early part of bringing all that together. And then I go on to do the ceremonial, state and ceremonial in London, working for Her Majesty the Queen, doing all her food-related things outside of Buckingham Palace, wherever she's eating around. We're involved in making sure that that all worked. I had a small team there. And just... that involved making sure that the contractors were working in the right place, making sure the food that was delivered. So it's just bringing it together, not physically putting the beans on the toast, but making sure that we've got enough beans and enough bread to deliver.
And what sort of events is that? This is big state events by this point.
This is state events, state and ceremonial. Yeah, right. big things.
So this is what, the governments or
royalty
from around the world?
This is the beating the tree, the state opening of Parliament, funerals, or anything big. Right. And if the Queen's visiting somewhere somewhere around one of the regiments and what have you, just making sure that you're on side, making sure that the protocol. So of course, Her Majesty, just making sure that she's looked after. And the protocol of food and feeding is what it should be. And whilst most people know what needs to be done, it's just making sure that things are done, and it's done in accordance of how the British Army want to do it.
Any particularly memorable events that you did in that time?
All of them are memorable. I remember on one event we did a curry lunch in the middle of City Hall, in the square of City Hall there. And so just put up a tent and just feed a couple of thousand people for curry. What they wanted to do is they wanted to have the world's biggest curry. So they came and said to me, right, Harry, can you arrange for the Guinness Book of Records feed the world's biggest curry? So again, sucker I am, I thought, well, let's get on the internet and have a look and see what goes on there. And to find that the world's biggest curry was done out in India.
What a surprise.
What a surprise. And of course it fed 20,000 people, and they didn't have too many EHOs out there. Yeah. And that was my challenge. Because whilst the EHOs, they're my best friends, and we work very closely together, I felt that I couldn't do the world's biggest curry. No. But what we could do is the world's biggest dispersed curry. And what that meant is that we would feed a couple of thousand in London, which is what I was doing. But on the same day, each of the regiments around the world would all do their curries in their regiments. So overall, we did well to get the world's biggest curry. The fact it was a dispersed curry, but they have a world military curry week now on the back of that. And I remember having this role to go and do. And those people who were involved in it will know all the challenges that we had, and there were a few. But the first challenge is, as we're putting up the tents, is the vicar comes out of the church from round the corner of the priest and says, "My dear gentlemen, it is 5 o'clock in the morning. What is all the noise?" I goes, "I have a lunch to get up for 12 o'clock and I need some cover." He said, "Well, could you just do it with no noise?" And I looked at him. I thought, anyway, we got on with it. I said a few choice words. Yeah.
Did you let him have lunch?
No, but I've since met him on 2 occasions. But I didn't know he lived in the church, which is unusual. He lives in the church, or lives at the back of the church or something. And it was just so funny. Here we are doing, a charitable event on a charitable piece of ground for all the right reasons. And yet the person to put poo-poo, it was the priest who comes out and whatever.
There's a certain irony.
Yeah. It is what life is.
How many people?
So that was a couple of thousand people.
But globally, when you say, it must be a nice thing to be able to orchestrate, to go, right, all of the regiments around the globe are going to do this on the same day.
Yeah, so they reckon they've done about 30,000 on a day. I think they're still in the process of trying to calibrate. I think what the Guinness Book of Records wanted, they wanted some facts. And they needed, if they were doing it in 100 places, they needed 100 people to be out there to film it, all that sort of thing. Yeah. So it's one of them things that you just live on the dream and you make as many numbers as you want now. So nobody ever really knows. But as far as we're concerned, we did the world's biggest dispersed curry.
And when you say they wanted a Guinness Book of Records, is this the Queen herself? Did she come and say, "Harry, I've always wanted to be in the Guinness Book of Records"?
No, I'm surprised. I would imagine she would. I would imagine she's in there somewhere. I don't know. That would be somewhere. Well, she's the longest reigning monarch.
Yeah.
So she must be in for that.
Yeah, true.
And this was, I think, the Army Benevolent Fund wanted to raise some funds, and of course, Her Majesty, in fact, on that particular particular day, Prince Charles was the representative of Her Majesty. And again, he was very well on it. He knew what was going on, and we had the opportunity to have a little bit of a laugh about the whole thing. And I remember he wanted, we had his gin and tonic all ready to go, and he came in and he said, I think I'd love a cup of tea.
Really?
And of course, where have we got cups and saucers? In the middle of a tent. Anyway, so I sent one of my boys down to Costa, run down there to go and get a cup of tea for him, and he was running back with the cup of tea up the road. And of course, if Costa only knew where that cup of tea was going.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But again, everything I do, I've been very blessed that I've got teamwork.
Yeah.
Teamwork, together everybody achieves more. Absolutely. And that's why Wembley is what Wembley is. It's a team. They may play together on the football field. We reflect that back of house and what we do. I'm only as good as my guys putting it together.
Yeah, no, 100% always the way. When you're doing things like, Trooping in the Colour in those state events, do you have the flexibility of menu choice with those kind of things? Is that down to you, or does Elizabeth say, I really fancy a tuna melt, Harry?
Yeah, if only. It would be wrong for me to say that she does not get involved, because she does. But to be quite honest, the machine is so well oiled that we all know what's required and where it's required. And it's in the royal household and how it works together is it's all rehearsed, it's prepared. There's no lastminute.com. 99% of everything we do, we've rehearsed, we've got procedures in place, and it all comes together. It's all like military training, all coming together. Everybody from the palace itself, St James's, from the military, from the Foreign Office, from whatever's working, we just come together to make it work, and we all know what we're doing long before the day. Do I have a choice in changing menus? And unless there is a real reason to change it, then there's no point changing it.
Yeah. Must have been a fascinating insight there. Did you pinch yourself as a lad from Lancashire who was very well known locally to be serving lunch for the Queen? Or?
Yeah, I do. I do. Still to this day, I have a board, a piece of paper off a big board, what the newspapers used to put up outside the shops, that says "Local boy cooks for Queen." And my mum had got a picture of something and give it. And of course, when I got home, I was a local. I live in a village that has a cobbled street through it and what have you. We've got a post office and a pub. When I go home, everybody comes to look at me. They don't come to see me, they come to look at me. And they still come in the house, get a cup of sugar and walk out. And it's that sort of thing. So for me to be down here doing it, doing the business, and look here, National Stadium, head of Culinary here, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, amazing, exciting. So as well as those roles, one of the things that jumped out, you did active service as well. You were in Afghanistan. Was it Camp Bastion at one point? Camp
Bastion. So I would like to say that I was partly involved in rebuilding the kitchen in Camp Bastion. So after I'd finished doing the state and ceremony, I went to the headquarters of the army, and my job was to go out to... so my job then is head of catering for the British Army, both at home and an operation.
That's also an awesome job description, isn't it?
It is a brilliant job description, and that's what got me my other jobs. And again, when you're writing your CV and you put in that, that first liner, you need to get a line on there that jumps out of you. Why are they going to ask you to see you? You need to get it in the first couple of lines, or they'll get bored. So I thought that would do it, and it seemed to work. I operated out of Andover, and again, it's a team effort. So making sure we've got enough chefs out there, making sure the food goes out there. Again, there's a whole organisation that brings the food. A lot of it comes out of the UK. Does it? And it sets off on wagons, on a train of wagons going out there. Can take up to 6 to 8 weeks to go out there, depending on what route it goes out there to get into Afghanistan. But, sets off from Winchester, across... over on the ferry over into France, and then up through Germany, over into the stands, down into Afghanistan, and depending on the route and the security of how it's going to go into there. Another route was for long-standing things, was a ship, would take the food round and up into Pakistan and up the routes into Afghanistan onto the border through there. And of course there's so that's by land, by sea, and of course by air, through military aircraft and civilian aircraft to drop food in. A story of that on one of the journeys of the train of vehicles going out there just before Christmas, the Taliban managed to blow it all up. So round about the October, we're trying to get now our Christmas fair over there for all the boys and girls over there. As you can imagine, the kitchen that we worked in is feeding about 25,000 people per meal. And the idea of that is making sure that you've got all the turkey, all the mince pies, everything you need for Christmas Day. That would be food in the military is very much about morale. Food's not good, morale goes down. Morale goes down, the operational effectiveness is broken. So we are very, very much part of the operational modus operandi of how the military work. And footballers out there, if I don't get the food into them right and it's wrong, they won't be doing as well. I'm not responsible for every time they lose. I'm responsible for every time they win. But again, food is so important. Food, you are what you eat.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that and get the food in. So when they shot up the train, moment's notice, we need to get a plane out there. And I remember talking to my colleague saying, how are we going to get the food out there? I need a plane. He said, not a problem, I'll sort your plane out. And we got some big plane. It was one of the big Russian Antonovs. Right. It's as big as Wembley Stadium, these things, and what have you. And we need to fill it with, a dozen containers or whatever it is to go out there of turkeys. And of course, we got the Antonov, and I always remember him saying, right, we got the Antonov. The problem I'm having is getting pilots. I guess, what, you've got a plane and no pilot?
I was going to say, if you can sort out serving 25,000 people 3 times a day, I'm sure you should be able to find your pilot.
But of course, it's all to do with the airspace and what have you, who can fly and commercial pilots and what have you. Anyway, I'm sure they got a couple of guys who was quite happy for a couple of bob. And it costs £1 million or something to take the plane over there, drop the food and come out. It's a good day's work, what I mean. But it's just an experience of making that happen and knowing that the troops got Christmas was a real, well, it's a relief in one hand, but it's sort of an accomplishment to know that you've just brought that all together. And it wasn't me on my own. There was, loads of people make it happen. I'm just at the end, just annoying away, making things happen for me.
Yeah. Is that still operational, Camp Bastion?
Camp Bastion is still operational, but in a completely different, it's done by contract. Right. As opposed to the military. So there's a couple of contractors that are out there that are delivering it, and it's a different regime that's out there at the moment. It's more of a monitoring as opposed to an offensive.
So how long was there 25,000 British troops based there?
No, so that was no. So the amount of troops overall was perhaps a little bit more than that. What we were feeding in Camp Bastion was 25,000, and that was a mixture of Brits, Canadians, Estonians, Americans, the Afghan police, the Afghan army. And I know that we used to start cooking the rice at 8 o'clock in the morning for the evening meal. That's how much rice we needed to get feed these people.
And this is all from a tented kitchen in the desert?
This was, so my role was to move this from a tented, that it was, into a permanent kitchen, so a bit of a prefab kitchen to bring this together. So I was there in the transition of field kitchen to moving it into a little bit more of a strategic sort of mobile kitchen.
Okay. And nutrition-wise, we mentioned the contrast, I suppose, footballers to army recruits. Is the army into nutrition now from a perspective of, I suppose, of what's good for you, how many calories do you need at the day? I'm thinking kind of, ration packs back in the day. Have they followed a similar thing to sport and kind of gone, right, this is, to perform at this level, this is what we need to feed? people, or is it if you don't give them a steak and kidney pie, they're just going to be really unhappy?
Yeah. No, we are the front end, I think, in the military. We have all the ration packs are state-of-the-art ration packs. And in fact, there's a commercial organisation that makes them for the military. And when you buy them out of the green packaging, they are for mountaineers, they're for extreme sportsmen. They are the same pack for all these people doing high endurance things. So it's the same food. Therefore, the calories that are in one are in for both people. And as much as a footballer needs what he needs his carbs and his vitamins and proteins and all this sort of thing. Well, the military need exactly the same. And very much, as they say, Napoleon said, a soldier marches on his stomach. And it's as true today as it's ever been. And really civilian life is pretty much you are what you eat. You can see the people who are marching on the stomachs and the people who need to do a bit more work. But you are what you are. And I know there's some medical reasons around some of the other bits, but pretty much what you put in there needs to go somewhere. And if you're not doing enough energy and enough bits to move around, then you need to do something about it. For me, I would say I'm well built, and you would never trust a skinny chef. And Absolutely. I'd like to promote that I am a healthy eater and a good advocate of my food.
Yeah, no, perfect. I'll come away from Afghanistan, but I've got to ask as well, sort of local fruits and vegetables. So you talk about sort of shipping stuff out in huge containers and trains and stuff like that. Is there a local market? Can you buy any of the stuff locally, or literally does everything go from the UK?
No, the fruit and veg came from Dubai. Predominantly. And the team in UK that were sourcing this have got markets around the world, as you can imagine, for any conflicts, and they would know where they could buy this from. So stuff that came from the UK was the meat, the frozen meats, and the tinned and the packaged and the dry goods. Fruit and veg predominantly. I think onions and potatoes might come from the UK, but pretty much the fresh fruit and veg, strawberries and all that sort of stuff came from Dubai and over that side.
Yeah, and then budget-wise, are you talking like an amount per head? Is that how it's calculated, or is I'm just trying to think again of the sort of vast scale.
So we work it out. Pretty much you get £1, about £1.50 to feed a soldier per day.
Really?
And
it's pretty good value, isn't it?
It is a lot of money, for a soldier.
No, but it's good. It's good value. That I wish I could feed my kids for £1.50 a day.
But when you're feeding in that sort of bulk,
yeah.
It works out very well. So, of course, how it all comes together, because it's on a budget, on an operational budget. Of course, no one's looking at the have you got enough money for this, that, and the other. It comes on an operational budget, and of course, the operations part of the MOD. You pay your taxes. You've got to make sure that your tax money is being paid and used properly. And therefore, my job was to make sure we're spending it correctly. So, yes, I'm accountable, and I had people above me who would be checking the books. I have people out there who are doing the accounts, and there is a full open book accounting procedure, and you can see exactly how many people we fed, how much it cost us, where it worked and where it didn't, and from that we learn from different operations how it works. That's why we've got it into such a good position now.
Yeah, I think it must be an interesting dichotomy. I remember interviewing Nick Leach, who'd done all sorts of sort of super high end private chef stuff, but then ended up trying to run. He ran the catering in a hospital for a number of years. And the irony, I suppose, of the super tight budgets that you've got to try and feed, a human being every day in a hospital, but the fact that actually you're trying to make them better. So serving them, cheap food or poor quality food is contradictory, because you're just going to make them there longer. And it's the same in the army, I guess, isn't it? Is that you want peak performance, you want people who can, operate at the extremes of human capabilities, but obviously you've got to try and do that on a budget. So it must be a challenge.
It's not easy, but it's good fun. It's what you train for. The idea of starting at 14, 15 years of age They didn't give me that job the day I walked in. You know what I mean? Everything that you do. So I was a chef in Crossmaglen. I was on the stove. I was working in Northern Ireland. I was doing, you know what I mean? I was on the streets at night time. I was in the kitchen during the daytime, backwards and forwards. I was a warrant officer, a master chef in Northern Ireland with a Parachute Regiment. I was the 2nd Battalion of the Parachute Regiment's master chef. So looking after the paras. Now there's another, you know what I mean, another story in itself. You know what I mean, they are at the peak of physical fitness. You know what I mean, they need all their calories. They come to the dining room with plates bigger than bloody bedpans. You know what I mean, they need feeding, and of course they burn off the energy. But they want, I'm a great believer that if it's fresh, good food, then it's brilliant. If you can't really feed people with crap, and sort of I mentioned early on, you know, I mean, Chernobyl chickens filled with water and all this sort of stuff. It's just not cost effective. You may as well buy good, buy once, and buy it right.
I agree.
And that's how I work here. I can't be doing with another delivery. I have the deliveries coming in on a match day, you know what I mean, just for bread rolls alone here. I have 2 Pantex of bread rolls, you know what I mean, I need 30,000 bread rolls coming in. Just to dispatch the bread rolls when they arrive here is nearly half a day's work. That's just the bread rolls to get around all the concessions.
You're not doing that yourself, Harry, are you?
Again, it's a team. My job is just
I just
to
thought Harry
see,
for half a day a week is
to get
rolls.
those round. That's a lot of work. But if that bread isn't fresh, it's baked in the morning. Here, it's in the concessions. In the afternoon, it was baked, ready for our customers. Because whilst we've got a burger going out, the burger is our bespoke burger. And the bread rolls round it, as again, is our bespoke bread that we serve it with all the accompaniments.
Yeah, amazing. It's my last army question, but do you get a bigger budget for the guy with the plate the side of a bedpan? Did the Parachute Regiment get more money than your £1.50, or can you not answer that? Yeah,
no, I can. There is the difference in food that the paras will have. They're quite happy to have stews, meats, that sort of thing, where in Afghanistan I was serving them fillet steak. You know what I mean, as I say, they had top quality food. I had to make sure that they were at the peak of their fitness, and that's what they enjoyed. Because when you're out for 6 months, you can't be eating the same food all the time. Where when you're in barracks in UK or in Northern Ireland and what have you, you might go to, you know what I mean, 1-2 meals a day because of everything else that's happening. Then you've got that mix with any operational rations, and then you've got time off, you're doing your own thing. So I suppose when you're out on operations, you've got a captive audience. When you're in barracks, you've got a little bit more of a sway. So you don't, there's a couple of enhancements that you get. To feed the paras than you do for those guys on operations.
Amazing. So 34 years of that, and then you think, right, I'm going to leave, and you end up at the Olympics. How does that happen? Why did you leave?
Why did I leave? That's what the general asked me when I said I was resigning. There was a couple of reasons. One is that this was an opportunity that I saw. So somebody knocked on my door and said, "Oh, we need someone to run to work on the Olympics." So interesting.
It doesn't happen every day either, does it?
It doesn't. Olympics again. I thought first of all they were going to ask me to do the 100 meters, which I felt I wouldn't be able to do. Yeah. Well, not in the time that they had anyway. So I thought, well, first of all, that was very nice for him to ask me. The team that was being put together, I knew 2 of the team, and I knew they were good operators. These are non-military people. I thought, there's an opportunity here for me to see what's going on. And I suppose after 34 years in the army, and I was at the top, I'd got the top job in the army, top military caterer in the army. And, you know, I'd been doing that for about 3-4 years. And you know what? There was a moment in my life, I was coming back from Afghanistan, and in the aeroplane I was coming back with, there were some coffins. And in one of them coffins was a friend, not a close friend, but a friend. And I'm sat in there with these coffins in front. And it was a time in my life I thought to myself, Harry, I think you've done your stint. There are lots of other people who want to do this. And really, you're getting a bit old. and a bit slow. And if they're catching these people, they'll be catching you. So when we landed in Bryce Norton, it was a moment in my life of just to say, thank you, I've had enough. So when I came back, and the things in the military are changing for the better, as everything changes. And I think that I need to come out, let the next generation take over and move it forward. I felt I'd done my bit. I'd thoroughly enjoyed it. So there's an opportunity to come out and get a job. Somebody looking for me, somebody wanting me. I thought that was very good. It means I wouldn't have to run around trying to find a job. I would have been coming out the army in the next couple of years anyway. So all roads lead to Rome. I asked the general, can I leave? I told him why, and he said, I accept. And I joined LOCOG, working with Jan Matthews and the team doing that.
Amazing.
I thought I was going to be, again, doing some contract work and some feeding work. I went to, first of all, take on the London Stadium. And that was seen that there's only about 16 days of the Olympics where anything goes on in the Olympic Stadium, apart from the opening and closing ceremony. So Jan thought she would utilise my skills elsewhere, and I went over to Excel, the exhibition centre, where we had 5 Olympic arenas in there for both the for both the Olympics and the Paralympics, and we're talking of a footfall in there of 147,000 people per day. So again, numbers, it all works. You just, again, it's a teamwork. I had the volunteers working with me. I had a full team in there. I had the support from Jan and her team. And again, you train for it. You've got everything together. The contractor was Compass working with us. The whole lot just worked together. And I think we produced a very good Olympics. I was very proud to be part and parcel of it. And then towards the end of that, somebody said, do I want to go and work in a hotel?
We'll come to that.
Okay.
But just before you do, 147,000 people a day. Yeah. Mind-blowing. Who's this? Is this the public? Is this the athletes? Is this corporate events? Is it all of the above again? Is it like a...
Yes, this is everybody.
Believe it or not, it's a mini Wembley.
From the athletes, from the judges, the coaches, the general public, the officials, our own staff, LOCOG staff, all the policing staff, and of course I've got a battalion in there of army doing the security.
Of course, yeah.
They came in at the last minute.
G4S, I remember
G4S,
that.
They came in at the end. So a real eclectic mix. And I was doing something, that was an experience.
I bet it was.
At the end of it, they asked me, would I like to go off and do the games up in Glasgow? I was quite happy to say no.
Really?
I was doing something like 16 hours, 17 hours a day for nearly 6 months.
That's quite reassuring to the normal mortal out there, probably, to know that it is possible to break you, Harry, and that maybe 150,000 people eating every day might not be fun.
It was, you run on your adrenaline.
Yeah.
There was a bit of a dip from the Olympics. There's a bit of a gap between that and then the Paralympics.
Yeah.
But what was good for me, and in hindsight, I actually enjoyed the Paralympics more than I did the Olympics.
Not just because it was a bit quieter?
It was a little bit quiet, but not much quieter. But to see what those people do, it's incredible. And of course, it brought different guests coming in. Again, people who got wheelchairs and various other things, a lot more to sort of see what was going on. And again, we had to make sure that all our counters were the right level, make sure we got accessibility wherever it was, a lot more for the Paralympics. And of course, for the judges and everybody else, all those, it was a different sort of mix, but it was a lot more friendlier mix. It worked very good. Whether we'd had the practice of the Olympics to do it. But I thoroughly enjoyed. I finished on a high with the Paralympics. I thought it might have been a bit of a damp squid, but it wasn't. I worked right up until the last day with the Paralympics. And all the staff, again, it's a teamwork. You can't do this on your own. No one can do it on your own. And everybody from around the world who comes to help us out on these things, it's brilliant. It just works.
I think as a country, we had a very good reputation for delivering the Paralympics, didn't we, compared to historically when it hadn't always been so big. So
Absolutely.
Amazing opportunity. So you think you'll go for a rest and you go to one of the biggest hotels in London, is that right? For a little lie down?
Yes, a friend of mine said to me, do you want to, they're looking for someone to be an exec chef. So you will know yourself that the industry of restaurants is one. The industry of hotels is another. It's 24/7 hotels. It doesn't sleep. And I went up to have a look at the Grove. I don't know the Grove. Don't know nothing about Watford and whatever. I thought Watford was Watford Gap. So I went out on a Sunday morning to go and have a look at the place. So it's a stunning place, golf course. It's again another location to visit. It's a sort of 5-star spa and the whole resort. And I have I have a Nanny McPhee moment, I call it. I sort of say, when you need me, I will stay. But when you don't need me, but just want me, then I'm going. And it's a bit like at the army. They didn't need me now. I'd done it. But they wanted me to stay, but didn't need me, so away I go. I suppose the Olympics was slightly different, is that it finished.
Yeah.
So they didn't need me and they didn't want me.
Yeah.
They didn't need me, certainly, and they wanted me to go and deliver something else. But no, thank you, I've done it. So when I went to the Grove, I could see this is a niche where I could work. They wanted a team builder. They wanted somebody to bring this together. So that's 90 chefs, and they were about 45 down. And they were operating on various agencies, and the cost for manpower was not good, and food costs were not good, and the team was not good. Lots of reasons how this had gone. There'd been a change of management, change of this, that, and the other. So there was an opportunity. It looked after me very well. I had never run a hotel as such, so lots of areas of hotels. So it's a bit of a steep learning curve. But very much what they wanted is they wanted someone to bring it together. It was about the cohesion and building them bricks. So I pretty much got myself involved. We started our own apprenticeship. And it wasn't long before we were bringing in, and I still believe this today, we brought in commies and apprentices, and we made our own CDPs. And believe it or not, the CDPs were brilliant because they did exactly what we needed and how we needed to do it. And actually, wherever they go, when they got to CDP, they need to go on and go somewhere else. Their world, they need to go and find the rest of the world because they will all make master chefs, head chefs, wherever they're going to go. But it was very nice that we was at the end, we nurtured them and got them going. Once we got that going, goodness bred goodness. And every time at the local colleges, I would go out to the colleges and go and recruit a handful each time. I had the opportunity to do some of their synoptic testing. So as I was going around doing their testing, I found any good ones. Here's my card. If you're looking for a job, I'm happy to take you on. And of course, that made life a little bit easier. And the head chefs that I had with that were there were brilliant. They could all take their own kitchens and they could breed their own people. They just needed the bodies to come in. We find it hard to find the people. But once we got it up and running, we were running at full capacity for a long time, and we moved the business quite forward. And that's where, again, my Nanny McPhee came in after 5.5 years. Harry, we'd like you to stay. I know, but you don't need me anymore. This is running brilliantly. And your next generation, you need to bring in with the next generation. A couple of key people went, and the balance changes. People ask me, how do I like change? I've only ever lived in change. If you stand still, you go backwards. So you need to be embracing, and you need to be able to know just when to step off to allow the next generation. So my mantra is about training the next generation. They can have all my recipes. They can have anything I've got. I'm quite happy to teach them. I'll spend as much time with them as they want. Hence why I do a lot of competition work now, judging on the panels and what have you. I'm happy to talk to them and tell them the reason you didn't get gold is because a lot more, and try and explain to them, because the idea of competitions, it gives them the confidence. And I had my own team from the Grove entering the competitions, and we won endless medals. It was a real dream of a job.
Amazing. How long did it take from turning up when it was 45 chefs short and chaos to kind of go in, you know what, there we go, that's now humming, I can enjoy it?
To be honest, I bet it would have been 2 years.
Yeah, good. And how different was it? Because I'm guessing the Olympics was just a one-off kind of, you know, weird thing, but you'd fundamentally done 34 years in the military, and then that's your first sort of proper private experience. Was it very different, or actually was the transition quite easy?
Quite easy. My wife said to me, "Oh God, it'll be a bloody nightmare when he goes out into Civvy Street because he won't know how to manage." But you know what? That kitchen, it's the kitchen ethos that's moved with me. I'm still inside the kitchen, actually. I haven't really gone out. I'm still in my safe zone, because I'm talking about things and I'm working with things. You know what I mean? Frying an egg in the military, whether it's on the Olympics or at the Grove or here, believe it or not, we do it all the same. So it's that sort of ethos, and the idea it's... So you come here, you know, I mean, I know nothing about football. Well, actually, the FA are delighted I know nothing about football, because they haven't employed me here to be the centre forward. So let me crack on doing the cooking, and he'll crack on kicking the ball.
Yeah.
They asked me, I had to name on something. I had to name 3 footballers, and I struggled to name 3 footballers. That's how bad I am.
Yeah, but you could probably name 100 different dishes with a potato.
Correct.
So now, you know, kind of looking at what you do next, and I don't mean change of job wise, but I mean, I guess that mentoring, that development of the next generation, that kind of passing down the knowledge. I think, you know, you work with some school groups. Was it competitions in schools?
Yeah,
is that now what motivates you and gets you excited, apart from the day-to-day kind of delivery of the job? Is it really, you know, that mentorship and knowledge sharing?
Yes, is the answer. I love working with the next generation. There's nothing better than seeing a couple of the youngsters. So I'm part of the Worshipful Company of Cooks, who sponsor lots of schools, Craft Guild of Chefs again, and then again with the competitions, I get the opportunity to see lots of the youngsters, and I get involved in, say, the judging, and to see that next generation just coming together, and if they're hungry for it, there's a handful that we've had just recently, and they're so excited about cooking. And I can remember, I think it's what I used to be like, you know what I mean, when they're just mixing this round and doing something, right, you know what I mean, taste your tomato soup. You've made it. They only ever thought it came out of a can. They're amazed that they could make it themselves. And of course, when you start putting together flour and some butter together to make your roux, and you're telling them how to, and then you get some carrots and some bacon bits for the tomato soup, they're going, tomato soup? They can't see where this tomato soup's coming from. And when it all comes together and they taste it, they can't believe it. Their eyes light up. Now, that's the people who are going to be passionate in the next generation. And I think that, so often people say, well, what's the chefs like now? Are they better or any worse than when you started? Well, the real answer to that is they're no better, no worse, but they are different. And one of the big bits that I found when I was working at the Grove, I went out to the colleges. I'll tell you just a very quick story that went horribly wrong. I'd gone to a college over in Essex, and there's 500 kids in the audience, and there's about 4 or 5 people who are coming in to give a careers brief, and I was number 2 or 3, and I said, right, how many people are interested in being a chef? So I got about 5 hands up. And I could see this was going to be a hard gig. So rather than standing right at the back of the stage, I come down, chatting to them. Told them all about, given my presentation, told them a little bit about what it was. I think pretty much part of it is, you know, I mean, this is a bit more than a job. It's a lifestyle. It's a way of life. At the end of it, I said, right, okay, so how many people now are interested in being a chef? Only 1 put their hand up. I realised why I'm not in recruiting.
Yeah, you told them the truth. That was the point.
But What I did learn, and again, this is a bit like me learning how to work an iPhone or something. I sat down, and the last guy came on. He was on, I think it was hairdressing or something like that. And I sat down. I was actually a little bit disappointed with myself. So I had the opportunity at the end to ask any questions. The others didn't need it, so I'd gone up. I said, "Well, I've got some questions for you. What I want to know: what do I have to do to get you into catering? If I want you in my work, what is it I need to do? What is it that's scaring you away?" And so the first one says, "Well, I don't like working weekends." So I was about to launch a verbal address at them, and I thought, no, I'm going to take this. So I wrote it down: working weekends. What don't you like about work and why? Well, I've got my own life to do, and I've got this, and I don't really like working weekends. I don't like working late nights because I need to be out with my mates. I'm going, what? Bite your teeth, just keep writing down. Okay, anything else? Yeah, you're not allowed to use your phones in the kitchens. No, you don't use your phones in the kitchen, but we want to use the phone. Okay, fine, well, let me write it down. The standard address, the cook's whites aren't very flattering. Well, it's not a fashion parade, but I get it. And everybody screams and shouts in the kitchen. So I took this away, and I reflected over the weekend, chatting to my wife and two of my daughters who were in recruiting as well. And on the Monday or Tuesday, I went to the HR at the Grove, and I said, I learned something last week, and I think we need to change. If I'm going to change how we get people in, we need to change. And we did, and that's what made the difference. So the first thing we did is there was an opportunity to put Wi-Fi in all the kitchens, and that was all to do with the fridges, and we have it here at the monitoring all the fridges. So we have a gentleman's agreement. You can have your phones, you can use your phones, because I realised people, on phones you could find recipes. You can phone, your parents and your wife. It's amazing what the iPhone does nowadays. And it wasn't me just thinking they're talking to the girlfriend all the time. They're using it, they're taking pictures, there's instant Snapchat or whatever it's called, all these sort of things of...
I think Snapchat is a very good idea for a social channel, but carry on.
Snapchat, yeah. So I realised how important that was. So as I said, I allowed them to use it. And believe it or not, I did say, if I caught you misusing it, the whole of the kitchen will lose it. Well, to be honest, everybody uses it properly. And out of there, they're finding recipes, they're finding new ideas, they're coming up with it, they've got their notes on there. It's amazing, it's brilliant. Working weekends and late nights, this was a bit more of a challenge, but I did go out to a couple of agencies and work around with, and interesting enough, I found people who want to just work weekends. They were slightly the elder brethren, who had got families and what have you, who perhaps part-time, had been a chef, perhaps had children and wanted to get back a little bit of part-time and what have you. And I found that these were brilliant work for it. They could work on their own. And doing the sandwiches, the afternoon teas and all this sort of thing, fantastic. Working late at night, again, it was a matter of this working, coming in at 7 and still working till 11 o'clock at night. I forgot there was halfway in the day. So we did a sort of a split shift. I found people who were good at getting up in the morning, and I found people who don't like getting up in the morning who are better at night. So there was just by moving a couple of people round, you started to accommodate what they wanted. And I remember having somebody who only ever wants to do earlies. And I thought, if that's all you want to do, I have a position for you doing earlies. And actually, it was one of the best things I ever did, because having somebody who could do earlies and be reliable, rather than you get a phone call saying there's no one turned up for breakfast, brilliant. So there was a handful of them people emerged. As for chef's whites, I got a better contractor to wash and iron and to launder the cook's whites to make them look a bit better. We got them an apron with the Grove on it. And I allowed them, if they wanted to wear black trousers, they could wear black trousers. If I was supplying them, then they'd wear the checks, but no clown trousers, nothing like that. At the end of the day, I need them smart. They all had caps and what have you, and they all look a bit of a run on military grounds. Often people say this is not the army. No, it's not. It's the Grove, but I run it like the army. So get over it. So I think all of those little things changed the way I did business. So my last 3 years at the Grove was made a lot easier because I had learned to just give. Now, that's exactly why I don't have a problem or too much of a problem here, because I can accommodate people on where and what they are. You know, we've got somebody who works till 4 o'clock. Well, if the event's at 8 o'clock at night, I need somebody in 3 hours before. Not a problem. Before, we wouldn't look at them people. So again, just by being a bit more flexible. Shouting, I don't do any shouting. The days of shouting was in the military. I don't need to shout. You either want to come to work, you want to get paid, or you don't. If you don't, then the door swings both ways. So feel free, you know where you're going. I only want you here if you want to be here.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because that's been the biggest shift, I think, culturally in the last 5 years in the kitchen, isn't it? Is that probably Ramsay-esque more than military, because you didn't have a film crew following you around probably in your kitchens.
Yeah.
But, you know, he, much as he's, you know, a phenomenal chef and he demonstrates you do need that discipline in the kitchen, probably put a lot of people off for a number of years.
I think
the people who worked with him actually stayed for years, and I'm sure he wasn't as bad. But the TV persona of the kind of shouty chef put a lot of people off. And it's not unreasonable, really, is it? As much as we may bemoan, the demands, I guess, of the younger generation, actually, you know, they're probably teaching us a thing or two, isn't it? Having some time to spend with your friends and spend with your family and having a bit of quality of life is clearly the right way. There's a lot of kitchens now going down to 4-day weeks, admittedly long days, but, you know, 4 on, 3 off. So, it's good to hear that it's happening at all levels, I guess. Any specific advice then to anybody, just, you know, drawing to a close, but there is a challenge, I think, certainly in our part of the world, but I speak to a lot of people, and in general, probably, you know, you alluded to it then, there is a challenge around motivating people to come into the kitchens. But it's still it's a fascinating career full of opportunity. It means, you know, you can travel anywhere in the world. So there's lots of plus sides. But is there anything you say to young people, apart from you can now have your phone, would you still advise, I don't know, even your kids, would you say that a career as a chef and in the kitchen is still a good idea?
Yes, in as much as it's still hard work. And if you're prepared if you want to work hard, you know, I mean, the rewards are brilliant. As I mentioned early on, you know, I mean, the promotion is a lot easily structured. You can see where your next step is. You know what you need to do. And there's so many disciplines in being a chef out there. So whether it's in school catering, fine dining restaurants, in the stadia, whether it's casual, and whether it's in the UK or around the world, you know, I mean, you are going to be in high demand for a long time. People are going to need to eat for a long, long, long time. And if you can be involved in that, and again, you know, I mean, there's nothing better than being at the topic of food. Everybody can talk about. Everybody's got an opinion about food, but it's brilliant that you part and parcel of everybody's life. You know, I mean, and for me here at Wembley, bringing it to a close, at Wembley, everybody who comes in here, they walk through the door to look at the football. But if I engage, they see me wandering around. They pass the time of day, we have a chat, and nothing about football, it's all about the food. And again, just bringing it all together, that's what the game's all about. I love it, it's exciting. I'm passionate about it, and getting the next generation involved, I think, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about it, and I'm happy at the stadium here to show anybody what we do. We're open and transparent here. It's hard work. And I'm always looking for volunteers. I'm always looking for people to come and work at Wembley.
Perfect. Well, thank you for sparing the time to chat. But I think more importantly than that, thank you for feeding the British military for 34 years in various guises, you know, on behalf of the British public. That's an awesome thing to have done with your life. But also, you know, really excited that you didn't just disappear off and retire. And now that you're keeping Wembley Stadium, which is another iconic part of Britain, I guess, isn't it? So I will put a link to the website for the various sort of, you know, memberships and access to the restaurants here. But thanks, Harry. It's been fascinating chatting to you. I appreciate you sparing the time.
Brilliant, thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's podcast. And remember that on the website humansofhospitality.co.uk, every week we put on some show notes and some links through to the various websites or social media that are mentioned. And we also do a nice little breakdown of that week's conversations into specific topics, so you can jump through the podcast and just listen to some of the highlights if you wish. If you've not done so already, if you could leave us a review on iTunes or one of the other podcast players of your choice, that would be hugely appreciated. Thank you so much, and we'll be out with another episode next Monday.